I'm so sorry. I just failed you, Tim.
Hi, everybody. Timothy Hughes here, CEO and co-founder of DLA Ignite. With me today, I've got Suki Fuller, and we're going to be talking about the importance of male allyship. Suki, just so you know, because we're recording this, well, we're going out live in December. She's rushed here from a Christmas lunch, and she just got in terms of the timing. Suki, where can people find you?
Well, not eating Christmas lunch. But here on LinkedIn, but also I am now on Blue Sky.
I'm on Blue Sky as well.
I've not done anything with that profile. It doesn't even have a picture up. But here on LinkedIn is probably the best place. My website is absolute rubbish, which is sukifuller.com. You can look at it and you can critique it, but it's not been updated. But it will be 2025. It's a plan.
Okay, and we've already had a comment from Robert Baker, who said he's looking forward to the session with the amazing Suki Fuller.
Well, it's funny, male allyship, and Robert is one of those people.
There you go.
He is.
So we met at a session on male allyship.
Yes.
And that was run by Zoom, and I wanted to, because you were on the panel, I was in the audience, and I wanted to get you on because you have such an interesting story, and DEI is such an is such an important factor now of the way that we work. But your interesting story is that, and this is the point of the conversation, is that every step in your career, a white male has been an ally for you.
Yeah.
And this is so white males out there, you've got a job to do.
You do, especially when you have a woman, and even if it, a Black woman and just a woman, period, working in male dominated spaces. And there are a lot of men out there that are allies, but aren't actually speaking up as allies. They sort of do it subterfuge, like, they're really supportive, but we really need men that are in the rooms to step up and to make sure that they are voices, because sometimes they're not saying the things to support women, and those women may know, like, hey, you were all about it when, we weren't in the room and you were giving me support, but when we got in the room, you didn't say anything. So it makes you feel isolated. But there are a lot of men out there that are very supportive. They just need to speak up.
And the thing is with D&I, it's not just about women, is it? It's about white men using their privilege to support everybody.
And it's not just white men.
I know it's not. I'm picking on them.
You're picking on yourself.
I can, yeah.
But it is. I mean, for those people that are, I always say, is for the people that are in positions of power. So it can be white men, a majority of the time it is. It can also be white women. And sometimes it can just be other people. It's not just also about your race or your gender. Sometimes it is that person that comes in and they don't walk so good. They walk with a cane. And it's about being that person that's able-bodied, although I hate that phrase, but that can actually walk in the building and walk up the stairs, and recognizing that other person that came to the meeting, they're not able to walk up the stairs, and just say, hey, next time you're having a meeting, maybe consider that we have it on the ground floor, or we go to a building where there's an elevator. And it's recognizing the differences that people and the issues that people have in their life that are different from yours, to make it more beneficial, more inclusive. But when it comes down to the allyship and it being about, men, and in my career path, it has been majority white men. And that's been beneficial because they are the ones that held the power, coming from a background which was chemical engineering and an intelligence. Those were all predominantly white men. And to be given that support at that age it worked. It worked really well.
We've had another comment from
Robert
who
is just burning up the keyboards.
says, I totally agree. We men in positions of power and privilege need to recognize our duty to step up as allies and take action. So you have an interesting background, don't you? Because you were born in London in the UK.
Yep.
And then you went through various iterations of your family. You went to live in Saudi Arabia. You then went and ultimately were schooled in the US.
Yes. So my mother likes men of travel. My biological father lives in Saudi Arabia. He still does to this day. He's an engineer. So we were quite fortunate as and people is not privileged. We were not rich by any means. Just we just had that good fortune to live in Saudi Arabia and then move around a lot throughout Europe. When my mother remarried, met my stepfather, who was American and in the Air Force, and we moved to the US. So I was fortunate that I had that early childhood schooling in the UK. So an appreciation for geography, for other cultures that I think is somewhat lacking in American schools. And then to go and be schooled in the US, that gives you more confidence, I think, where in British schooling, it's sort of, keep your head down, work, and somewhat elitist in where you're allowed to go with your education. And in the US, it's kind of like the world is your oyster. Do whatever you want to do, be the smartest, be the fastest. It's kind of like the tech community. It's just put your hand up and go, go, go. And you get where you get because you really worked hard at it. There's a level of privilege, but still, it is about working hard. And that's the difference that I think the mindset that's really sort of embedded in me. So I have the British humor, but the American way of saying it. So I can be, quite sarcastic, cynical, and stab you in the back and stab you in the heart, actually looking at you in the face, but still smiling like an American.
So in terms of your life, you went a particular way, didn't you, into chemical engineering, and you were kind of set on that path. But then you were actually the first time. Hopefully, I've got this right. The first time that someone actually stood up and said, "Have you thought about this?" was that there was a particular course, wasn't there, at a particular university, where someone said, "Have you thought about doing this?" Because you were kind of going down this chemical engineering route, and it wasn't, or route, and it really wasn't something that you particularly wanted to do. And then someone said, "Have you thought about this?"
Yeah, so I have to give a shout out, even though he's now deceased, is Bill Castro, and he was my general manager when I was working in chemical engineering, and I was electroplating, and I wasn't finding it very enjoyable. And I said, okay, I'm not going to do this anymore. I am going to figure out what I'm going to do. And just looking around at different university courses, and I found the intelligence studies program, and I went in and I spoke to, shout out, Bob Heibel, second white male. He is the founder for the intelligence studies program at Mercyhurst University, and he was fabulous. And just went in, spoke to him, and it was like, this is me. This is me. And Bob championed me my whole academic career. He was always there, always very supportive. I think my mother loves him more than me. And I think he loves my mother more than me. There's a relationship there. Just, it was like he sort of said, okay, you're here. You can do this. This is what you're meant to do. This is your calling. And yeah, he's just, we call him H. Of course we do. It's intelligence school.
You'd never call somebody by their name, would you? It's like
exactly. But he was a former deputy director of counterterrorism at the FBI. And he formed this program at this university that became a school, that became its own, part of the university. And now we have graduates all over the world that work in different national security environments, different corporations, just running intelligence programs, running corporate security. We're everywhere. We're everywhere.
So why do you think? Because you went to um, Penn State University, didn't you?
Yeah, that was the beginning.
Which was, but that was that you still got universities in the States which are quite kind of still quite split in terms of um, history.
Yeah.
And so, what is it? Do you think that when you went and you were doing the metal plating, that he saw in you, that he said that you know, what? Why you? Why him?
Um, I think when I went to the Penn State program, that was sort of for gifted students,
Hmm.
and they had an academic program that you could go to. And I was good at it. I didn't particularly enjoy it. But I think and Jim Bel Castro, he knew that I wasn't really particularly happy being in that electroplating. He championed me. He was very supportive, like, you're really good at this. I was the only female in a company that was 125 years old or something ridiculous. Working in the lab, I was the first female. I was definitely the first Black person. And working in their lab as an electroplater, and I'm working on aerospace parts, I'm working on Harley Davidson, automotive, all these great, wonderful things. But he knew I wasn't happy. And then when I started looking around, I told him what I had found, and he said, yeah, that's definitely you. And it's because looking back at my childhood, it mirrored and married all the things that I really enjoyed. When I was a kid, I wanted to be Indiana Jones. I wanted to be James Bond, M and Q and Poirot. So it was all the things that I enjoyed, all in one particular field. And then when I went and spoke to Bob Hybel, H, it was hands down like, this is what I'm supposed to do. And I had the curiosity, the insatiable curiosity is one of the things as an intelligence analyst that you need. You want that thirst for knowledge. You just want to know. You want to know, and you like learning. You like learning and getting different pieces of information, and you love putting together those puzzles, but you also like the history. And that's what really, I think, really stood out when I was talking to those individuals about what I wanted to do and where I wanted to go. And then I have to give another shout out to Chris Wheaton, who was one of my professors while I was at Mercyhurst University. And he was really one of those people that also pushed me further. And that was with him. I was working on projects that were working in national security. We're doing real time, real life projects as we're also studying. So the program is practical application as well as theory. And that's what's really, really terrific is that Chris Wheaton, he made you he used to have some wicked, wicked, like, okay, we're going to pretend you're doing a national security briefing and you get to go home, but he calls you at 3 o'clock in the morning and you have to rush to campus, be dressed, and do a briefing. That was while you're in university, and you're just like, okay. But it trained you. It trained you for being an intelligence analyst in the real world. And he was supportive in the fact that I'm in this program. And come to find out, I was the first Black female graduate of the program. I did not know that. I didn't know that until I left university and went and collected an alumni award. And I was, what? I'm the first person? That was really weird.
So we've had two comments. One, which is from EQ Kant, which says, "Awesome."
Ikua, I know her.
And this is also comes in from your feed, which is unfortunately the person hasn't given permission for LinkedIn to share their name, but it's LinkedIn user. We can go back and see who that is unless they put their name forward. Question for you. So what does male allyship mean to you, and how important has it been for you?
So for me, male allyship is somebody who is willing to, one, share their time, share their network, share their, I guess you could say, privilege or power in order to support, to champion, and to really, I don't say, I'm trying to think of a word to say, just sort of represent you when you're not in the room. It's that thing where if you have somebody that's always supporting you when you're not in the room, then you know that that's true allyship, because they are willing to stand up and say, I support this individual. I think they're good at what they do. They know what they're doing. They have, business acumen. They are intelligent. They are well versed in the topic. If they're willing to do that and stand up and do that when you're not in the room, and basically also put their reputation on the line in support of you, that's true allyship. If you're willing to do that in a private room where you are amongst your peers and that person's not in the room, that's true allyship. If you're willing to do that publicly when you're standing next to that person or you're standing somewhere else, if you're willing to do that, that's true allyship. For me, it's those people that are always willing to connect, to share their networks, to collaborate, and to help you progress to the next step without ever calling into doubt your talent or skill. Yeah, there is always going to be, here's where you need to grow. But it's just having the fortitude to actually put your foot, to draw that line in the sand and say, I am with you. I support you. And it's when people say they do, when they're all talk but no action, that's not allyship. You need to be about the action too.
Is that like a common mistake that people make?
Yes.
Right.
Yes, there are a lot of wordsmiths out there that say, I support women, I'm an ally. And then when you actually say, well, who have you introduced in your network? Why is your network still very male? Why is it that when people, even if you look at LinkedIn, oh, I support females, I support women. But then when you go and you look at all their connections, it's like 85% men, or even higher, 90% men. And it's like, well, I don't see you ever connecting women to your network. I don't see you don't have to attend every event, but every once in a while, you need to go and talk to the source. It's you don't know what's actually going on unless you're willing to talk to the source. I always tell the women in the TLA Women in Tech Network and all the women in tech networks that I belong to, the Black Women in Tech Network, I always tell them being a woman is not a career. You have a sector that you belong to, that you work in. Whatever that vertical is, you need to be in that group. So if it's a group and it's fintech, you need to be in a fintech group. Doesn't matter if there's no other women in there. You are the voice representing women in fintech. And those men that are in that fintech group, they should be listening to that woman, because she is the voice of all those women. Even if she's the only one, she's the voice you need to listen to. But at the same time, those men in those fintech groups need to come sometimes to the women in tech networks, because even though it's not going to be all about fintech, it's going to include all the topics that you need to be aware of that are affecting women. You need to go to those events where it's inclusionary about people that have disabilities. You need to go because you need to be aware of the issues that all those people are having, because we are not just one thing. There's no person on this planet that is one thing. You wear glasses. So, you want to talk to people that are, RNIB, or people that are working with those with sight disabilities. I have a sight issue. Which is way worse than yours. but that's what I'm saying. If you're going to be an ally, you need to you got to put your money where your mouth is. And for male allies, I think a lot of them are not putting their money where their mouth is. They're saying they're supporting, but they're not, because we wouldn't have that dismal, percentage of 1.8 women being funded in, angel investment to that 2.8 that it was last year, and it dropped to 1.8. So what's going on?
Yeah, I interviewed a neurodiverse person on here, and she had a startup, and she said she emailed me before the podcast and said, "You can't say that I'm neurodiverse because I'll never get any funding."
And I just think that's absolutely,
And
it's sad.
Isn't that isn't that awful? Two positive comments. Dr. Hina, Tim and I basically say, "Amazing, Suki, that's fantastic. She's coming from your network." And Eku Kant sums up the podcast really well, which is you need to be both an action taker and not just someone who posts.
Exactly.
Allyship is a verb and a doing word or an active thing.
Exactly. I always say, because in the intelligence world, we have this, actionable insights. That's what we do. Actionable insights. It is, we're helping you to form an understanding of a situation and you take action. It's completely falls apart if you're not going to do anything. Then it's just words. It doesn't matter if you're just saying the words without putting it into practice. And that's why when I went to school, it was about action and theory. It's so you understand what you need to do, but at the same time, you need to make sure you know how to do the action. And I'm like, I just saw a long comment pop up. Don't read them all. Don't read them all.
Well, we're coming. We're coming to the end, really, Suki. We're coming up to the 20 minutes. And Robert says that he's enjoying it, and thanks, Robert, for the engagement. Suki, where can people find you?
Find me right here on LinkedIn. I always tell people, please put some comment when you send that connection request, because
yes,
we do all get a lot of them and you're never quite sure. So at least just say, hey, you saw me on Tim's, live or something. Just at least put a comment in there.
Yep.
That way I'm not thinking, okay, you're a bot, and that just saves time. But that is the best place to find me.
And there's also SukiFuller.com, which is a website that actually is, she's very modest about it, but I actually like the website. And
it hasn't been updated in years.
Even though she's going to be doing it up soon, but you can also find her at Suki.com, SukiFuller.com.
Yep, that's good. And thank you very much for having me on, Tim, and letting me spew.
That's okay. It's been fantastic. It's about getting we need to get the point across, and I think that we've done that.
Yeah, and I have to give her a shout out. I didn't mention Russ Shaw, who is the founder of TLA, Tech London Advocates, and Global Tech Advocates. He has been a great ally for the Women in Tech networks. A lot of women that work within the tech industry. I think everybody knows who Russ is. So he's been a great ally throughout my journey within the tech sector and helping startups and helping female founders. But yeah.
Thank you so much.
To give him that shout out.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks a lot, Tim.